Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dualta Doherty, and in this podcast series, I will be speaking to investors, advisors, entrepreneurs, and recruiters who are based all over the world, and we will be discussing how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment company. Today's guest is Robert Kenward. He's co-founder and Chief Talent Officer of USearch and Select. So he's based down here in Brighton, close to where I live, and he's got a recruitment company that does executive search in the events management space, and that's all he does. So I wanted to get him on because I see he's quite active on LinkedIn, has some good opinions, and he's had some great experience running major recruitment companies in the past. And he left the industry for a bit, got into event management, and then just saw that recruitment wasn't being done right in that space. So went and put his money where his mouth is and set up his own agency. His agency is interesting because he's quite happy to stay as an independent business owner and isn't interested in getting an office and hiring lots of people, and feels that he can have an awesome work-life balance, and made that clear that work-life balance for him doesn't mean you necessarily aren't working a lot, but he gets to spend time with his son, time with his wife, gets out golfing, does all of that, and then make sure that if he needs to do work, he's there at 9. He's there till 9 o'clock at night, most nights. So he just works throughout the day, and I call that work-life integration. I do a lot of that myself, so I had a lot in common with Robert on that, and on running an independent recruitment firm. So it was interesting to hear what his model's like, how he went from contingent to retained. He even chanced his arm doing rec to rec at the very start, and that absolutely broke his heart. So he decided never to go near that again. So over to Robert. Hope you enjoy.
Hello, Dualta.
Robert, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, great. Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. Yes, thank you.
And what a lovely day it is on the south coast of England. Have you been out sunning yourself and enjoying yourself?
And we'll get on to why I set my business up later, but yeah, I look after my son. I've got a 4-year-old, so I look after him on a Monday. So yes, we've been down to the beach throwing stones, eating ice cream, even though it's freezing, and generally mucking about. Yeah, it's been good fun.
Oh, have you handed him over at this stage, or are we going to have a little guest?
No, my wife then picks him up now. So they're downstairs. I work sort of 3:30 till about 9 o'clock on a Monday.
Oh, very good, very good. Yeah, I have recently given up my office, and I'm using the home office here. So it's I sometimes get too little intruders, but so far it's not too bad. I'm actually thinking of checking out a co-working space in Brighton.
Oh right, yeah. Of course, you're reasonably local, aren't you, as well?
Yeah, I'm in Arundel, which what's that, like 40 minutes?
I had lunch in Arundel on Saturday at the townhouse or tower house or something like that.
Oh, the townhouse, yeah. That would be one of the nicer restaurants in the town.
It was the 3-year anniversary of our business, so
good for you.
I went away, and my mum had my son, so yeah, nice couple of days away.
All right, nice one. Okay, so we'll jump into your business a little later, because any recruiter that believes in helping you retain staff must be a bit mad. But we'll go into all of that in a little bit. You had another career before getting into recruitment. What made you make the entry into our industry?
Yeah, so before I was in events, I was sort of high street recruiter for 10 years.
Okay.
working sort of across, retail, shop front recruitment, then moving into national sales after I've become sort of branch manager, and the usual sort of progression that happened. Got into national sales and then was headhunting myself to go to another specialist sort of on-site, if you remember on-site recruitment, sort of high volume distribution centres. And the lady that I worked for there went, and her now husband, she went to work for him, and she sort of said, you need to come to London. I was living in Bristol at the time. She said, you need to come and get into this event stuff. And that's how I moved from recruitment into events, which is quite a weird sort of transition, actually.
But was it recruiting in events, or was it just working in event management?
So no, I was a senior director in events. So I sort of stopped being a recruiter when I went into the events industry. And then when I got up to sort of board level or senior management level, obviously at large, I was at one company where there's 130 of us. So I had a team of 22. So recruitment was a huge part of that. And that was really my last sort of reason to go and do it myself. I just realized how poor it had become, and especially in so-called specialized recruiters, shall we say.
Yeah. And tell me, so you're in London, you're managing over 20 people. Are you stressed to the eyeballs at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, 22 people, as anybody will tell you, that's far too many people. Especially they were in 5 countries and 7 locations. I think I was abroad twice a month when Ed was born. That's my son. I think I used to see him maybe once every 10 days after work.
Oh man, that's tough. Yeah. And it's not like any other business, not that I profess to be an expert in it, but by the nature of it, there's a lot of moving parts. So those 22 probably need a lot of hand holding, right?
Yes, very much so. And I walked into an agency, a very well-known agency, but it wasn't structured very well internally with regards to job descriptions and line reports. And it was a bit of no one knew what was happening. So I was the new broom and, ruffling feathers, trying not to ruffle feathers and be the new broom. Yeah, and on different time zones as well. So we had people in New York and Shanghai and obviously the usual European hubs. So, it was very, stressful. Was maybe not stressful, just a lot to do. There was a phrase always springs to mind: 80% of your day is taken up with 20% of your workforce, and that couldn't have been more right at that place.
Yeah, and so you've already spent a large part of your career in high street recruitment before this, over 10 years, right?
Yeah, blimey.
By the looks of it, how much of that experience were you able to take when creating your own business? Because I can imagine that it's a very different dynamic than what you do right now.
The part from my old career that I remember was when I set up a commercial division, sort of permanent administrative sales, that sort of thing. And, it was sort of run like the old temp desks. And I just realized that nobody really got to know candidates. The registration was the interview. And this was back in ye old days, which is still what we're dealing with now. It was more fee-based, contingency, first past the post. So when I set up the business, it was, if I was a hiring manager or an HR manager, what skills have I got from my recruitment days coupled with what I do now, and what would a client want? And then when I went through them, I was like, well, that's actually a lot of work. And it was just, well, it's nothing new. It's, I haven't got recruitment 3.0. It was just, very, very hard work. And as you know, recruitment isn't actually hard. If it's easy to do it terribly, but it's just really hard work to do it properly. So I sort of put all of that together with my events background, with my sort of thinking, I've been in the recruitment industry for 10 years. Because when I started the business, I wasn't actually a specialist in that sector. I was trying to do it on job title. I sort of said I was a sales and operations and I think client services expert, and tried to do it cross sector.
It's harder to create media and any type of buzz about what you do if you're spread too thin like that. Did you find that?
Well, it took me 9 months to find that. Can you believe it? I class myself as reasonably intelligent, but it took me 9 months, and I had a few good wins with some of my old recruitment networks.
I'd say there's a lot smarter people than us that have
that have made that mistake,
Well, yeah, I think what happened is I started with a few big wins from my old network and thought, oh, this is easy, this is great. And then, thought I was going to be a rec-to-rec recruiter for my sins at one point. And then,
how did that go for you?
I'm just about earned my soul back. I think it's I've just made it my peace with the devil, and he's left me alone now. So,
how hard was it?
I didn't find it hard to find people, as you and I have talked about before. Finding candidates is the easy part in recruitment. I've always felt that, but I really struggled with the whole premise of recruitment companies treating you like, the lowest of the low because you were recruiting for them when actually they were recruiting for others, if that makes sense. I found recruitment companies the least likely to let you do a face-to-face brief or give it to you retained or anything really. And the reasons for non-taking people further were just, some of them disgraceful actually, to the point of, I'm sorry, I can't work with you again.
Yeah. I'd say getting to see under the hood at lots of little firms in the South Coast would have been an eye-opener.
To be honest, most of them were Midlands, North, I suppose, because, that's where the old agency of M5 corridor, for the distribution hubs, that sort of so there wasn't actually a lot in the South Coast. And it was the larger agencies that I had to struggle with because, they are bombarded regularly with rec-to-rec people, which, there's a lot of really good ones out there as well. And there's little old me trying to do, the fitability that we talk about and that how different we are and how we add value. And really they're just interested in, I need to fill a position, get me someone quick now. And that wasn't my business plan. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, that, isn't it? You kind of expect recruitment companies to maybe be a bit more conscientious and appreciate things, and then they tend not to. But I suppose that's why I've learned to doing the international piece, because they have to, because it's such a gamble to pay for somebody's visa to move them across the world, that they have to be really good. So their own processes and stuff have to be really good as well. Where in the UK, it is just a dogfight sometimes, and it would eat my soul sometimes.
And they burn them up as well, don't they? It's chuck them in. If they don't work out probation, we'll get another one in. And I just can't. I do pride myself on trying to do things differently. Not saying I'm perfect by all means. And I think it took me a few meetings with people within the events industry, coupled with that sort of experience of rec-to-rec and some of the other industries. Somebody said to me, "Why aren't you doing events?" You always do the "Why did you want to see me today?" There's lots of other people out there, and far too many people started saying, "Well, you've been in events for X years, and you were then in recruitment before that for X years, so you're credible already." And that's half the battle. And it was one of those moments after about 8 times.
Yeah, and so it's almost like you kind of knew you wanted to set up a recruitment business. You weren't too sure what it was. You kind of stayed close to what you kind of knew, and then it led you to something you really knew.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's because of the best thing we did was specialize, become a niche, become only retained, only work on senior roles. And I think every client that I've ever met, I think in the last 3 years, I think I've seen something like 120 companies, to introduce the business. And there's actually only been 2 that have said, no, that's not for me. Thanks very much. And the rest of them, as you know, the problem is with senior recruitment is it's very reactive. I do the odd spec if I'm asked to, but it's very reactive around when they are going to invest £80,000+ into their business. I'm the guy that they'll come to. So there's only so much you can do to push that. And it's that the fitability angle for me as well is, we trademark that. That's a proposition. So it's sort of an HR talent added value, because we do the interviewing as well, you see. So rather than the usual registration, we do.
Okay, so when you were setting up your company, you kind of, what I like about the story is you've kind of learned it on the job. Like it's not like you went into setting up your own firm with everything figured out.
No.
But you got like, okay, I want to be a niche provider. I want to be an expert in the space, but I also want to have control. So I want to be retained. I want to be able to predict things. And then I want to be able to add service on top of that. Then talk to me about like how long did it take you to kind of get your model in place that you were like, okay, now I'm comfortable with this?
So I'd say it's 9 months from set up to become an event specialist recruiter, and then a good 3, 4, 5, 6 months before I took the word exclusive and contingency off my material and started offering we do 100% rebate for 6 months. That sort of kicked in after that period of time, and then just decided, no, I'm going to be a retained recruiter and explain what sort of the whole fitability angle was, how it adds value. I posted something the other day about there's a lot of retained recruiters, as you know, just doing the same as contingency, but just wanting to be paid up front. And that's not what retained is. So it was, over a year, I suppose, from setup. God, that sounds terrible, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. It's pretty good. Say a lot of us takes us quite a few years. I think I'm still at a point where I'm tweaking things and changing different things. There's a guy called Steve Lowitz. He's worth following if you get a chance, and he runs a multi-million-dollar search firm in the US, and he's got a channel on Facebook or YouTube, but it's called Recruiter Fuel. But essentially, his business is really interesting. So he it's 100% retained, old school search firm, but he embeds people in the company. He embeds his people in the company. They track the people that they place in there,
fantastic.
And so they help all the employee analytics and all the rest. So they predict the right person, then they do the psychometrics to get them in, and then when they're in there, then they track them and help them throughout the time in there.
That's fantastic.
And then they work on the next bit, which is predicting what future hires, and work with the company in order to do that. And he has the full solution from analytics to all the software tools that do it. And he's invested a ton of money in it. But that's not a luxury that me and you can have. But we can certainly do some of it on an affordability basis. What you do something slightly different. You get in there, don't you, and do a lot of the interviews on site, right?
Yeah. So I will, on assignment, I sort of go in and meet 2 or 3 of the stakeholders and do bespoke briefing processes. I will then actually write.
What does that mean, bespoke briefing?
So I will go in and interview the hiring manager, the line manager, and one of the senior stakeholders with a suite of questions designed to pull out. You've given me a job description. I'll get underneath the skin of that with the briefing, because after I do the briefing, I actually create a bespoke candidate and role profile. So it, in essence, becomes the candidate's notes, but it also is the document that says, is this what you want? If I put this person in front of you, can you sign this off, sort of thing? I also write job descriptions as well for clients, because you can imagine with senior roles, some of them are hybrid or they've come about because somebody's left that's been there a long time. So the job descriptions got dust on it, sort of thing. So
without asking you anything too obvious, what type of questions would you be asking the business to elicit the information that wouldn't be like completely obvious? Like, is there any wee things that that if you ask them, you'll get under the skin of what they really want?
As well as the usual, I really sort of delve into the culture, the career progression. I take it much more anecdotal, tell me what you want, sort of thing. But then, we ask the questions, tell me, why would someone come and work here instead of where they are now? What do you want people to know? Even asking people silly things like, why is there no one internally that can do this role? It just makes people think about the longer term. I mean, the document we produce is incredibly detailed, but it's that job description that comes through. Then you can really see the difference between what's gone through as a generic job description and what comes out the other side as a profile. It's very much around because the fitability angle isn't just, it's not about culture as in recruiting drones. It's about cultural fit. Tell me what the type of people internally that do well are, rather than we've got a fun culture. Yeah, but what about the successful people? What personality traits do they have? What is it they do? So that when I'm interviewing, somebody on paper might be great, but if they're not showing a lot of those personality traits, I'm just filling a hole, which is not what I'm there to do. I'm there to, place career roles, and ideally in 2 or 3 years, that person comes back to me because their team has grown and they want me to recruit again, and now they're the hiring manager.
Do you make their existing team take personality assessments?
We do behavioural profiling. So we had a company create something for us, and it's very top line. Everything about fitability is just creating conversation. It's giving you information to make decisions, and the behavioural profiling is very much STEM scoring, sort of 1 to 10, 4 to 7. They're breathing, that sort of thing. Just creating conversations around this is what has come from it. You've told us this in the profiling we've done with you. Let's have a chat. It's not, Savile Holdsworth or DISC or that sort of thing. It's not ongoing management. I always tell people, once you've onboarded, once you've got them into your own systems, set fire to it, get rid of it, sort of thing.
Yeah, fair enough. And where did you educate yourself on executive search? Because your background's definitely not executive search, but yet your model is. How'd you go about that?
Well, working in the sector I'm in, I was always at director senior management role. My last role was the second largest agency in the UK, a 75 million turnover in the space, meetings, events and production technical. So I was always at a senior level. And I think when you've worked at that level and the sector and you know how to recruit, you just put it all together. And I've still got the bit of paper in front of me. Like my wife and I, she's an HR, was a senior HR professional. So we just went through, what would you want someone to do for you? And we got to the end and was like, well, why don't we just do that? I think I said to you before, yeah. I've not invented something new. I've just looked at it and thought, what would I want someone to do if I was paying?
Yeah, I suppose I'm asking you because your process sounds quite academic. So is your wife in the business with you?
Yes, she is. She does with HR.
Okay.
She's moved more. Weirdly enough, she's actually done a master's in town planning in the last year or so. She wants to move more into.
All right.
She wants to move more into that. But we've got a new business open.
I know how that goes.
Oh,
right?
God, yeah.
I set up my own business with my wife, and then she went off and had children and became a yoga teacher, and now she's kind of coming 360 and coming back into the business.
Well, to be honest, she's focusing more. We've got a new business going live in about 3 months, which is an HR and talent consultancy. So we'll actually implement processes into agencies and say, don't use recruitment agencies anymore. Do it yourself, do it better, save yourself money, retain staff. So she's doing a lot of the documentation and the sort of the work behind that. But yeah, in answer to your question, she's incredibly intelligent. I'm reasonably intelligent. I've worked in recruitment and the event sector for 17 years. It was very much and I tested and measured that. I went to a few people I knew that owned agencies and companies and said, look, tell me what I've done wrong. Tell me what I'm missing, and had people tear it apart and put it back together until we got to where we are now.
Well, very good. Okay. So you went through that on a case by case basis.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's really interesting. And whenever you're that sounds quite time consuming. How does your day look whenever you're putting together these proposals and documents, or does your wife jump into that piece?
No, she can't read my writing, and also the formatting of other people's CVs alongside my writing, it doesn't work out well. But no, I think this is something that, again, this took me a good couple of years to get used to. The fact that just because I don't work 9 to 5 anymore doesn't mean I'm not working. Like I said, Mondays I look after my son. Wednesday morning I'll play golf. Friday afternoon we go, try and spend some time together about 3 o'clock as a family. But then, in the week I'm probably at peak at the moment. I've got 6 roles on the go at the moment. So I'll be working till 9 o'clock most days, because obviously senior hires, you won't get to speak to them in the day if you want to
No.
actually understand about them. You might have the usual recruiter of getting them for a 10-minute fag break, telling you what they want. But, I have timescale slots right up until 9 o'clock in the evening. And that's most of my work is done. And Saturday mornings, I'm always on sort of 9 till about 11 at the most. I try not to encroach the weekend, but, it does.
Yeah, I'm the same. 9 o'clock's kind of a cut off, but sometimes I have to do calls at midnight. But it's not like it's to a point where it's an everyday thing.
Yeah.
And I've said this a few times on the podcast. People think that if you're not running a scalable business, it's not a real business.
I know.
And if you're not working in a big office and in a suit all day, it doesn't really count. And it's still tough, hey. I mean, there's still an awful lot of work to do to run a successful lifestyle business, isn't there?
Yeah, I think you end up becoming all things, don't you? Your marketing, your social, your digital, and you've got to do the new business as well. As much as I have clients coming to me now, which is fantastic. Obviously, the work I'm doing now, if I don't do anything now, it's going to bite me on the in 6 to 9 months' time. So you've got to keep that pipeline moving. And I made a very conscious decision to never recruit people again, as in, for the business to never have an office. I've worked out in my head the number I want to turn over and the number I want for my life. I don't want to be a millionaire, Dualta, but I've got a certain number in my head of I've invested a lot of money and time into this. I've had the usual people ring and say, oh, we'd like to buy your business or we'd like to invest, but really it's just to, close you down. And you start looking at, if I was to, hey, my number say is X amount per year, how much do I then need for X? If I've got, say, 6 employees, it becomes, you're sort of timesing it by 10 to get the same number. And, I've managed people for, 24 years. And I'll be honest with you, I was called an inspirational leader, but a terrible manager. So I took that on board.
Does that mean you're not structured enough?
I probably too structured. Like people will, follow me, and I can inspire. But when it comes to my wife says I have tons of sympathy but no empathy. So that's lacking in management. Management, and also I just don't want to do it. I said to you about my days. I work enough hours in the week. Yeah. I don't want to be called on a Monday because so and so's sick, or the electricity isn't working, or the client's calling about this, that, and the other. It's all manageable.
Yeah, I'm going to hire a person shortly. Hired somebody last year and they tried to rob my business. Oh, wow. So I'll be a bit more careful about that in future. But I've hired a couple of people successfully through Upwork. I've done a few podcasts on it, and they both work for me 20 to 30 hours a week, but they choose their own hours. Yeah. And we have a lot of our business systemized. I'm going to train in another one now because, like yourself, I don't really want to manage a bunch of suits in an office right now, but I still want the business to grow. And I kind of I want the challenge of it. Do you not worry that you're not working yourself out of your business enough?
I had an epiphany a while back, and it was, what do I want from the business? Do I want to build it to a multi-location, multi-million turnover that someone's going to offer me X, Y, Z, or do I get to a stage of earning? And I'll be quite frank with you. My target was always double what I was earning, sort of corporate side. So if I can earn double my salary for the next, say, I'm 42 now. Worst case scenario, I say 60. That's 18 years of earning double my salary. All right, I'm working smarter, not harder. And then somebody maybe in 15 whatever years time will say, do you know what? I'll give you X. A few tens of thousands or 100,000 just for the name. Am I happy with that? Or do I want to work myself to the bone now with the slim hope that I might be an agency that somebody wants to buy in 15, 20 years? So, no, I took the other decision. Also, I'm hanging everything off my son that he's going to take the business on. No pressure.
Very good.
Or, there's people that can take on my business. It could be somebody spoke to me the other week about sort of the franchise element of it, or the sort of partnership. You know, in 15, 20 years, someone might want to take on the name and mantle and keep it going. But I'm not.
That's if agency recruitment is still here in 15 years' time.
I always think agency recruitment will be there. It will just be different guises. I mean, if you look back at when, Jesus, I'm old enough to remember, you know, having to stop at telephone boxes to use the phone and stuff, you know, and then when social came in, you know, everyone's like, well, that's it. There's always been something's going to get rid of recruitment, but I believe a lot of the technological changes will get rid of poor recruiters, and that can only be a good thing. You know, what's that? Jurassic Park, you know, a paraphrase of Jurassic Park: recruitment will find a way.
Yeah. Well, it has done so far, right? And I think it's easier now to be an independent recruiter
Absolutely.
than it has ever been, because I don't think companies are too obsessed with working with big corporates, and I think they like the personalization of dealing with a business owner.
It's also soft and high touch, isn't it? If you think about what I do, in essence, if you were to strip it back, I suppose, if you are people used to say lifestyle business in a sort of negative way, or one man band, and it was somebody looked down on you. But nowadays, you'd be an independent freelancer. You know, I work on a project basis. In essence, I go and work for a client for a period of an assignment, and then I leave them alone until they need me again. You know, that used to be called outsourcing, if you think about it.
Yeah, and what type of stuff are you heavily involved in trying to promote on social media? Is your head in that space?
Up until about 6 months ago, it was with not a great deal of strategy apart from type of content, when to post. And last sort of 6-9 months, I've been looking more at the sort of digital marketing, speaking to people, SEO, obviously the pool marketing side of things. I'm very aware that at the moment it's my company is me, if you know what I mean. I'm my own brand, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I try to pull away from that, but then you think, well, actually, why would you pull away from the thing that's making you successful? So
yeah, and that's a really interesting thing to get into, because common sense says, okay, you need a brand name and you want to have something that sounds bigger than it is. But then now we're kind of all pushing towards developing your personal brand. So why put something else in front of the thing that you're trying to get out there?
Yeah, it's just noise, isn't it? I think it's, and at the end of the day, they are retaining me and my expertise, my credibility, and the company is there obviously for a brand, as you know, websites, social have a need, but they're also there for people to do their due diligence. You know, you meet someone, network, and they say, oh, you should speak to Robert Kenward. First thing that person's going to do is Google you, look at your website, go on your social channels. You know, you can't be seen to be an idiot on those channels. But also, you know, they'll come. I mean, LinkedIn for me is great and terrible because obviously it's a recruiter's haven, but it's great for senior stakeholders or agency owners to hear about me and then come to me. In fact, I've had 3 direct, I've seen your content on LinkedIn and I'd like to talk to you this year, and we're only in February, which is very unusual.
Yeah, do you know what? I have a candidate interviewing in Australia right now, and good high chance that there's a placement there if things work out. He came to me from being on Hisham Azou's podcast.
Oh, okay.
So it just shows that if you do put yourself out there, and the universe will reward you.
Yeah, and actually, I saw something over the weekend. Somebody was saying about LinkedIn, how terrible it become. And I think the problem with things like LinkedIn is people think, right, I'm going to go on there, do a bit of work, and it will come to me. But it takes 9 to 18 months, personally, to build a brand that people are going to flock to you. You've got to. It's not even on social, even on your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those channels. You can't just be thinking, I'm going to post this. Look at how clever I am, and then next week someone's going to ring and go, oh, I saw how clever you are, I'd like to speak with you. It just doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, we need to use our network, really.
Yeah,
That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and a lot of the people I get, because of the seniority, I have people come to me and say, "Oh, so and so told me to make sure that you and I are connected in case something comes up in the field I specialise in." That's fantastic for me, and all my testimonials I get, they're not all from people who were successful, off my shortlist, but they're still happy to give me positive testimonials. I mean, what more can you ask for, really?
So, do you see any changes to your business? Because it sounds like you're very happy with your size, you're very happy with your market, you're very happy with your model. Is there anything that you're thinking, I need to do this to get my business to the next stage?
The focus for me is the new business. So Jigsaw Talent Solutions, I've called it JTS. That's, for both the revenue stream and for my proposition, because JTS will focus on sort of entry level, junior, mid management. Don't go to recruiters. I'll implement process. You can do it yourself. And then obviously, if you'd like senior level recruitment, I happen to also own an agency that does that. So, it sort of crosses over nicely in that whole sort of lifespan of candidates, basically.
And are you going to drive your own personal brand at both of those companies, or is your wife going to head up one of them?
That's a very good question, and I think the answer will be I've got an HR partner that I know from the industry who works within the sector, and she's very keen to be involved on a freelance basis. And we're actually due another child in July, actually. So that's sort of, although it was planned, it's obviously put a spanner in the works as well. But it's planned. So I think more it'll be maybe the partner than my wife. Partner approach, not like I've got another partner. I think that would be more the approach, that she will sort of focus more on her masters and the consultancy she's doing there, and I'll focus more on the businesses with this sort of partner approach.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
No worries. Always good. Always enjoy your work.
Good stuff. Well, we'll catch up again soon, and maybe we'll grab a coffee sometime down in Brighton.
I'm sure there's an avocado frappuccino latte for Brighton will have for you.
All right, Robert. Talk soon.
Right,
bye now.
Daughter. Cheers. Bye, mate. Bye.
Well, a massive thank you to Robert for coming on the podcast. And I'm sure a lot of you who are listening will be jealous of his fully retained model where he can predict his income and work with who he wants. And, he's done that by being a niche specialist. So really getting to know a sector and being confident enough to be able to deliver. And he's built it up over a while. Now, I'm sure starting out it was challenging, but he's at that lovely place where he's 3 years in and a lot of the hard work is done. So he could probably decide whether or not he wants to scale that, or as he decided he wanted to do, set up another business that will run alongside it. So, great wee business that he has, and we'll be back tomorrow with another fantastic guest. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a rating on iTunes. I'd love to get that 4.5 star up to 5 stars again, because some bastard give it 1 star. But thanks everybody for listening. And if you want to come on the podcast, just message me on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions on any of the episodes, hit me up. I'll do my best to answer it, or put you in touch with somebody who can.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.